What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So tonight I'm going to be reviewing Queer, which is a film that's directed by Luca Guadagnino, adapted from William S. Burroughs, and stars Daniel Craig in the lead role. So, if you were to tell me that we were going to get two Luca Guadagnino films in 1 year, I would tell you that you're full of shit. But once that reality started approaching, I was ecstatic. I was like, really? We're going to get the banger that is Challengers, and then something that's adapted from William S. Burroughs, directed by Luca Guadagnino, out in the same year. I just thought that was kind of some crazy shit. And it's here. I mean, I think this movie is literally playing in only one AMC in my entire state. So it's very, like, in terms of release, it's extremely exclusive right now, pretty selective, at least in my state. I don't know about everywhere else. But I decided, fuck it, I'll just pull the trigger and drive out to see it. And really, the only expectation I had going into this is the fact that I've liked most of Guadagnino's stuff up until this point. I really loved Challengers this year, obviously. I thought that was a really great movie that I honestly didn't really think was going to be that great, but I really, really dug that. William S. Burroughs, the only thing from him that I think I've seen adapted on screen is Naked Lunch, which is the film that's directed by David Cronenberg. And that movie is just absolute batshit from start to finish. I mean, it is sheer nightmarish chaos and just like disgusting body horror through and through. Very intentionally nonsensical, but also at the same time, kind of having a lot to say. And I love that movie. That's probably one of my favorite David Cronenberg films. So, I had kind of that to go off of when going into this movie. But that's about it. And, after seeing this movie, I can say that I actually liked this movie quite a bit. I liked it. It's a film that, for me personally, I wasn't quite sure how much I was enjoying it as it was progressing. Not quite sure how much I was getting out of it. But I think by the end of the film, really, to me, it really is the final chapter in the last, basically the finale of this movie that I think is going to give it some staying power and is going to leave an impression on the viewer, because that's what it was with me. I'll just say this, in terms of Guadagnino's stuff, I feel like I've seen pretty much almost everything from him. I've seen, obviously, Suspiria, Call Me By Your Name, Challengers. I've even seen A Bigger Splash, which is kind of his own remake twist on La Piscine. And I've seen Bones and All. I feel like I've seen pretty much everything from him. And this, by far, to me, is his most surreal work. This is his most kind of out there, weird, bizarre, metaphorical piece of filmmaking. And I could kind of expect that a bit, considering that, again, it's adapted from William S. Burroughs, who is kind of known to be this very boundary-pushing, abstract, experimental writer. And I could just get that alone just from watching Naked Lunch. So just the nature of that alone, this is by far Guadagnino's most experimental work. And I dug it. I really did. Obviously this movie titled Queer, it's going to tackle a lot of themes regarding homosexuality, identity, sexuality, intimacy, which is something that is huge with Guadagnino. This is a movie that, again, I think Guadagnino is really great at really expressing not only the emotional element of it, but just the sheer expression of human intimacy and closeness he is just like really, really great at expressing that through his direction and through his imagery and through the way that he directs the interactions between the actors. And this movie has a lot of that. I mean, I think a lot of what, at least the main character in this movie, which again, I think a lot of William S. Burroughs stuff, again, I'm not the biggest expert, but I think a lot of his stuff is very like autobiographical. But I think like one of the biggest things that I took from it thematically was this kind of desperation of human interaction and intimacy, especially that. I mean, like, sexuality is a huge part of it, but just to have someone near you and touch you and, you know, feel like they care for you on a spiritual level, like, I think that is something that is central to this movie's experience and to this movie's theme and the approach of it all. Because Daniel Craig's character, which, by the way, Daniel Craig, really cool to see a mainstream actor like this, you know, take part in something that is, again, like, kind of wildly out there. Like, this is not something that is necessarily his wheelhouse. Not something that he has to do at all. He clearly did not do this for the money. This is just him, you know, really trying to not only challenge himself as an actor, but, you know, be a part of something that is actually, you know, artful and meaningful. I mean, look, this is like fucking James Bond we're talking about here, who is, you know, the lead role in a movie that has, you know, explicit homosexuality in it, and is also, you know, it's very, like, in a lot of ways quite experimental, and it's just kind of cool to see him in a role like that. And he's fantastic in this movie. And again, like, it's a lot, pretty much all of it is revolving around his character and, you know, kind of exploring his psychological state of what he's feeling as this homosexual character, who is, again, just like so desperate for, you know, to be close with another human being, you know, to really feel like he is loved by someone else. You know, again, him being homosexual, it makes it that much more oppressive and that much more difficult, and then again, in turn, making him feel more desperate for it. And, you know, this movie also tackles a lot of other things like drug addiction, and there's even this whole thing about, like, telepathy as well, that's also kind of through this, like, drug-induced, you know, visual piece of filmmaking that is, like, really, again, it's psychedelic, and again, feels very personal and spiritual, and it's really, really, I don't know, it's just a really interesting and unique experience. And, you know, especially, like, you know, the whole drug addiction thing, that's something that I think, again, it's autobiographical, and it's something that we clearly see in Naked Lunch. I think there's a lot of similarities between this and Naked Lunch thematically, drug addiction being one of them. And, you know, I do have to say, like, the ending to this film felt very, like, Charlie Kaufman-esque. I don't know if I'm gonna be the only one there, but in terms of, like, what this movie, like, in terms of how it expressed, like, this, like, existential sadness and almost like a bit of, like, a nihilistic attitude about aging and loneliness, it felt very like something you would see out of a Charlie Kaufman movie or screenplay. And look, I think, like, that very like, you know, melancholic and basically, like, depressing ass ending, I think that's actually, like, a huge part of why the movie actually works for me. I think if the movie didn't have, like, the final 30 minutes or so, I feel like the movie would have not left as much of an impact on me as it did. So yeah, I think it's really bold, and I think, like, clearly this isn't meant for general audiences. Like, for a long time I was thinking, like, why isn't this being released more, You know, why is it so exclusive? You know, A24 is known to, you know, kind of being really shitty at like releasing movies theatrically and like marketing them. And I thought that was the case here. And, you know, that probably is a little bit of the case for sure still. But I think there's a little bit of a reason, just because of the fact that it's clearly not meant for, like, white audiences. This is still, like, a very, like, you could tell that it's made for selective, like, art house film lovers who, you know, can be patient with a movie because it is quite slow. It's not the most energetic. It's not as chaotic either. Like, even though it does progress in that arena, it doesn't start out that way. It feels very... It gives the viewer the impression that it's going to be a more, like, linear, you know, human experience. But it's, you know, it's still not... It's still, like, I found it to be quite a slow-moving movie that you kind of do have to be patient with. And, considering that it progresses into more like experimental territory, this is definitely not a movie that is like meant for everybody. This is a movie that is, you know, it feels like a passion project in a lot of ways. This is like Luca being like, yeah, this is one for me. I really want to make this. And then Daniel Craig also in this kind of same boat, like something he wants to make, something he wants to be a part of, something special like this. And it's just really cool. Like, it's really unique. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is like off the dome. I just saw the movies, basically like a reaction, but I think that it is quite effective. I think it does leave an impression. I'm probably gonna be thinking about this movie for a while, and it is thanks to like those final 30 minutes that again have to, there's a very like, you know, spiritual, eye-opening, you know, trippy kind of movie that is very like introspective and reflective on one's identity and their place in the universe. And, you know, and it's up to the human being to decide whether or not they are going to continue, if they are going to continue down this path, or if they're going to reject what they know is true within themselves for the sake of conformity and for the sake of comfortability because of societal standards. And I think, you know, the ending to this movie and really the final, whatever, 20 minutes, it really hammers that home quite well. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. I'll give Queer a soft 8 out of 10. I think it deserves that rating. I really do admire special movies like this that you can tell just, you know, they aren't designed to make money. They're there because the people, everybody involved just really wants to make it because it means something to them. And that's really cool. And it's effective. You know, it's actually like, I think, a well-made and very like imaginative and well-directed movie overall. So yeah, and again, it's not gonna be everybody's cup of tea either. Like, even I can see even like some art house film lovers, you know, watching this and being like, yeah, not my thing. And, you know, that's totally fair in my opinion. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the movie. I'm gonna have a review on Flow coming out soon, which is a film that I saw recently that I cannot wait to talk about. But that's all I gotta say for now, guys. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, just give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.